Okay, what's that? Great. All right, welcome everybody. We have a forum. Jim Cornwell will not be joining us. He's out of town. And I think as soon as Kevin joins us remotely, we'll have everybody here. So let's go ahead and get started. We have a fairly light calendar tonight. But let's get started the way we always do, just to approve the minutes from our July 14th meeting. I sent them out, I think, on Friday. So if you've had a chance to look at them, are there any comments or questions or things you'd like to change about them? I thought they really, again, captured our meeting on the 14th very, very well. So, okay, do I have a motion to approve the minutes from July 14th? Carl made the motion. Seconded by Graham. All in favor? Great. Minutes to approve. Okay. Okay, so then our second order of business is review of the certificate of appropriateness application for 231 Iona Avenue, and I sent you this was over the weekend. I sent you a set of drawings. Actually, the set of drawings that I sent you were not the most recent ones. They were the ones that had been initially proposed. And I think you guys have brought, Jason, you guys brought the updated ones.
We have a current set.
Okay, great. So I was gonna, is Kevin on yet? No, okay. So I was gonna have Kevin sort of set up the whole project because he's been working with Jason. I'm sorry, tell me your name again.
Stacy.
Hey.
Stacy, don't ask me, Stacy.
Okay, been working with you guys like for on the other permitting issues. And this was not a project that was going to be coming to us because of the basically the design of the addition replacement of it. The fact that it met all of the zoning requirements. Kevin is our zoning officer. So this was not going to be one that was going to be brought up for our review until there was a change during construction, whereas the original front door was removed and there's a larger one now. It extends 4 feet 4 inches forward. So it's a considerably larger dormer than the one that was there. I sent you, in addition to the now out of date drawings, I sent you photographs, 2 views of the house, actually 3, and then a view of the house from a couple of doors down. That is the same model home, but it has the original dormer, so you can see how it matched up in terms of the historic dormer versus the one that is now been framed. I guess Kevin spotted it and then had you guys stop work on it.
He asked us to stop. Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay.
Verbally, and we of course did.
Okay. If you, I'm happy to have you go ahead and sort of describe the project a little more if you'd like. And
Kevin Walsh just joined, so
Kevin,
he's here.
Okay, Kevin, hello.
Kevin, can you hear us? Kevin, are you muted?
Yeah, I can hear you guys. Yep, we're good.
Great.
Great.
Hey, Kevin.
Hey, everyone.
So I don't know if you heard some of the setup that I gave. I was I'll throw it over to you for starters. Because I say you were involved with this project longer from the zoning standpoint. But I just kind of gave them the high points of sort of why we're here looking at it tonight. But
Yeah, so I think what happened was just during one of my inspections, again, I'm going to try and just be as quick as possible. Just during one of my inspections, I'd realized that, the front dormer had kind of just been new materials. So I kind of assumed it had been extended, and then I kind of compared it to some Google images and realized that, all the work in the back, the addition and the conversion of the existing garage into an accessory dwelling unit is not under our purview, just because of the corner lot and the lot layers, how they're defined. But the alterations to the porch, which were in Dennis's email from I think Friday or Saturday, is what we're looking at solely, and then the extension of the dormer into the, I guess really the front yard setback.
So yeah, so that extension of the front yard setback, so that kicks it into a zoning issue for you, right? It's not just the hard.
It would be like an additional zoning review. However, there's an exception under the detached house building types that allows second story dormers to encroach no more than 6 feet into the front yard setback. So is that Jason in the crowd? I'm sorry, I can't see.
Thanks.
I'm sorry. Sorry.
They're here. I don't know if the camera can. You're welcome to join us.
Kevin, we're here. Hi.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah. So I think Jason, you can answer. The extension's less than the allowable 6 feet, so he meets that exception. So everything that he's presented from a zoning perspective is actually compliant. I kind of just needed to do a re-review. And then during that, we triggered the harb review for both the porch and the dormer.
What's the question regarding the porch? What came to your attention, Kevin, about the porch?
It's just you're unenclosing the porch, which actually is usually preferred by us and the zoning code. However, when you unenclose a porch from a conditioned space to an unconditioned space, you're actually pulling the setback of the building back towards the front facade where you walk in the house now, where previously would have been from the edge of the finished porch. So he kind of pushed that back, which is allowable. And then the dormer actually now encroaches into what previously wouldn't have been a front setback. It would have just been over, the front of the building, but now it's actually in front of that front setback line.
By opening up the porch, it changes the setback line. And the door.
Yeah, it does.
Considerably larger.
And just,
Yeah.
it sounds like, Kevin, just to be clear, so we're defining an enclosed porch as part of the building, not just an enclosed porch.
If it's an enclosed porch with walls, yes, it's part of the building. If it's like a
I would have
sunroom,
thought that still counts as a porch, it's just an enclosed porch.
It is the conditioned space that kicks it into. Yeah.
exactly, yeah.
Kevin, does it matter if it was not conditioned?
For your standpoint, not necessarily, because you get that allowable projection of 6 feet, but I would probably have to do some digging if it wasn't conditioned and you weren't allowed to have that projection. I think we'd probably have to look a little bit harder into that, but I mean, you're fine either way, whether it was conditioned or not, or whether it was kind of where the setback was measured. You really are relying on that exception to get by. Right.
We have some pictures to help explain it. Are you ready for us?
Oh,
to-
sure. Go ahead. Yes,
Presentation. Great. Thank you. So thank you for the background, Kevin and Dennis. And also Dennis, thank you for taking the time to come by and see our project. So I can hold this slide over for you. So what we have is 3 sections essentially that show how the project was before we started. Comparable existing dormers, which we believe make it that it maintains the historic nature of the neighborhood. And then this is what we have constructed. So that was the dormer as was. And the problem was that the windows were very, very high in the room. So we had asked the contractor to lower the windows. We thought he was going to do a trough, but when the framer came by, he ended up just pushing the dormer out. And obviously we did not realize that we needed hard review, so we apologize for that. And the purpose of these pictures is, in this instance, to show that we're going to do board and batten and boards that are similar to other homes in the neighborhood. This is 231 Iona. That's 313 Meeting House next door. And the purpose of these pictures is just to show that there's a lot of dormers constructed nearby that extend over the porches, similar to the detail that we have now constructed and put on hold here. And down at the bottom here, it's just to show kind of a sample of how we intend to detail the new dormer. And this is the color that we have selected for it. So we also maintain the exact same window sizes that were there to begin with. And obviously, we request that we are able to leave it in place to avoid economic waste. It is framed and roofed. And we just had Tyvek paper on it, obviously, to protect it from weather. And after Kevin asked us to suspend, we obviously respected that. How long? We're happy to answer any questions about what we have here.
Well, I mean, first of all, kind of the way we have to look at things. We're looking at the original dormer and we're looking at what the size and the shape and the characteristics of that original dormer.
Sure.
The fact that, you know, there are other dormers of different kinds throughout the neighborhood really doesn't, that doesn't matter, you know, because, we're working with the existing building and there are other buildings of that same model that have your original dormer. I mean, so there are ones that are just like it. The one that you're pointing to on IO is a brand new house.
Correct. We were showing this more for the board and batten intention, that we were
Okay.
using materials that have been
Okay. I was
used in
showing
a,
this
no,
one.
it's not for similarity
Okay.
of construction details, just in terms of how we intend to
To
detail it.
finish it.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's correct.
What about that one on Meeting House to the left of that, top left?
Yeah. That's 313.
I wonder if that is original or?
Yeah, we believe it is. Yeah, we actually, we all that.
Was
Oh.
the third window, the top window, original? On the left,
Over here?
yeah,
Yeah, it's not a window, it was a vent.
Yeah.
As you can see in the picture, yeah, it was just a old metal vent.
It really would have had a window at some point. They vented it at some
Got
point, but yeah.
It's a vent from the others.
Yeah, but nevertheless, we believe that the modification is consistent with the historic nature of the house. I understand it's different, but different alone shouldn't rule it out.
Well, it definitely makes it's a much stronger design element because of its size. Because it comes over the entire porch and it doesn't line up the way the other one did. So it gives a very different characteristic to the facade. And, that's the way our ordinance is written is, we have to look at changes made to openings, to windows, dormers. I mean, we have an ordinance that's very much, geared toward, overseeing the removal of key elements of the building. And so the historic dormer in the main facade would be one of those. So that's really why we're looking at that. So the question is that I would have us all describe this. I mean, one question I would say is, okay, if this had not been constructed yet, if it hadn't been framed yet, it was just coming along us as a review of a proposal, what would the conversation have been? What would we have said?
Sure.
About it, and that's the way we have to look at it. I mean, I'm glad you stopped work because, if it needed to be brought back to its original configuration, it can be done. The windows are so you'd still be able to use those windows that you bought, because they look bigger. I mean, are
They are not
they're the same size
I know.
as the historic ones, I think.
identical.
Okay.
But they're definitely not bigger.
Okay.
Yeah, and our goal is to, and by removing the windows on the porch, we view that as a positive thing because we understood that it's not desired to have those porches anymore in Narberth.
You know the length of the dormer,
54 inches larger than it was.
well,
The total length? We took the plans. I think it depends where you take it from. So are you asking from the ridge line back to where it meets the roof?
Where it meets the roof to the cable.
Don't have the scale with me, so you not doing that dimension. So it's probably about 12, 13 feet.
It's 4 feet 4 inches.
4 feet.
Further forward than the original one.
It was originally 15 feet, so if it's 4 feet, it's now 19 feet.
Where are you going?
That area code.
Oh.
But just as a comparison, 313. The dormer's 20 feet long. And it projects. Anyway, which is like, yeah, I'm not sure if the issue is like that do you extend it all the way to the porch column line?
It's just inside of that, I believe.
It sort of,
Yeah, maybe we'll show it later.
Is the ridge line consistent front to back? Same ridge line all the way through?
It was just extended. We did not remove the old dormer. So it's the same exact location. Is that what you're asking, sir?
Sort of.
Yeah, the ridge in the back was merely extended. The original framing is all there, so it's just additional framing. So a mirror of the pitch.
But the ridge in the back is the same line as the ridge in the front.
Yes. One continuous line, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah.
You want to make sure I understand. Yes. And so, something about, is there guidelines published? Could we look to see what the guidelines were?
there's the ordinances available, and it covers what the purview is. We don't have, our specific design guidelines, we don't have usually the Secretary of Interior standards.
Got it.
It was, we had proposed to council accepted. I think that's called out in the ordinances as well, but it's very much, the ordinance is very strongly an anti-demolition ordinance. Because we had very little protection for houses, that would be sort of summarily removed. So it talks about removal, whether of the structure entirely, or in this case, of sort of primary elements on the sides.
Sure.
So,
Yeah, I mean, our goal in our renovation is to maintain the character, the original character. The features, the addition of the back, same thing, with the overhangs and all the rest, all the details is to be and conform to the kinds of details that we built here.
yeah. There's the issue of scale, which we haven't really addressed all that much, and it's much more sort of obvious on corner property. In terms of like the size of the addition we've been dealing with is sort of additions that are really, sort of bigger than the house and comfortably cape. And so that's a conversation that we've been having along. But this addition, the addition is very prominent because it's on a corner. If this was a house that was in the middle of a block, it would not, it wouldn't be as sort of dramatic. But it is a very, it's a sizable addition. But that's not what we're here. Tonight. We're really looking at the facade and at that dormer. So, other sort of comments or questions that you all have?
I just have a dramatically different feel for the facade with the new dormer. You just have to see the photograph of the old house with the existing dormer and a much larger dormer in its place. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, we understand that. Yeah, absolutely.
That's my concern.
Right. But
What is that?
I just,
Larger dormer.
Yeah. Why is it a larger dormer?
Well, how is that different from adding a dormer where there wasn't one? That's infinitely
You-
larger.
You wouldn't be doing that on the front side.
Well, it's in Lower Marion, but if you walk 2 blocks to Haverford Avenue, which is the border, there's an example right there of like adding dormers to a 2-story house.
That architecture. Anywhere.
I know, sure, but I'm saying like, is it, is it?
I just would ask you to also consider the very odd condition we had. The windows were like, up to here.
You can see it all.
So where is that
They're-
playing out? I'm
they're-
just
they're all
curious, you
like-
mentioned the height of that, so,
That was here, right inside.
oh, okay,
They're all both there.
I'm sorry, so which is the dormer then? When you're, I see that
Oh,
one
right
right
here.
there, that's the dormer.
Yes. This one.
Uh-huh, yeah. And by extending it, you're changing the height of the window. You're,
We put the window at a standard height, the same height as the other window to the left.
right? Because you're picking up some.
And they made the room bigger,
Sure.
This
by 4 feet.
height change.
That's true. Correct.
Well, the fact that you got several other examples of existing dormers. 401 North Narberth Avenue. And the property that you own and we have planned. Suggests that it exists like that consistently in other places in the neighborhood. Now you own the one on Meeting House and you renovated, but you didn't change the lines of the dormer there. Is that correct? So you
It
said,
was an interior renovation only.
so as far as you know, when you acquired it, it had those lines on the dormer.
It did. We repaired drywall in that room, so you can
Alright.
see that it was original frame.
Okay. So you have some consistency in the size and the style and the shape of those dormers with what is being built.
Were those examples of larger dormers, were they any of them built after?
That I couldn't answer. We didn't look up permitting or anything like that. We looked around. I mean, it's interesting. This one obviously is the same as, that's the same house, but there's another one right here, a few doors over that has the same configuration, which looks diamonds, not so. That's not so gnarly.
House. They're different houses, different designs,
Yeah, of
different
course.
architects. you
Sure.
know. But the particular house that you had a particular dormer. There are other examples of that in the borough also. So, I mean, you're always gonna find a variety of different kinds of dormers. You got shed dormers there, and you've got these, that cliff gable, there are a number of different configurations, but the point is that you had a particular configuration on that house.
Yes, and I think we would offer that different doesn't mean it's not consistent with the historical nature of the structure.
Why we kept the windows the same size.
And I think you could probably walk, a lot of people by it and people wouldn't really say, oh, wow, you destroyed the historical nature of the house by adding the door.
Well, including that we
No
kept
one's
the
saying
original
it's
windows.
I know,
No one's
Same
saying-
with
no one's
the
saying that.
I know,
So,
but different doesn't mean that we have, that we don't believe we've changed the historical nature, which is why we kept the windows the same and tried to keep the.
And we opted not to put in like 3 windows. We really wanted to keep it with the neighborhood and make sure that that spacing between the windows was consistent. We measured it, as well as keeping the size consistent because we were, of course, the architect was like, oh, put the whole thing black. We're like, no. Let's keep it, I have a design background myself, so I really appreciate the, historical value of any home. In fact, I've owned historical homes before, so I really respect the look of the house and we really made sure that we kept consistent with the neighborhood. We tried to.
Tell me a little bit more about the porch. And the opening up of the porch, because none of your, the drawings, none of them show that.
It was not conditioned and we just didn't see a large value in having a room that you couldn't really use. And we wanted to, because we were doing the addition on the back, we were trying to bring the house in a little bit visually. So it didn't look so long. And we believed that it was architecturally pleasing to remove the windows, not to mention they were older and we would have had to replace them. And we did not want to do that. We wanted to open it up and have it be an open porch, open to
Right.
neighbors.
Yeah, and
We
we're very,
put a porch
we're very
swing.
supportive of porch openings, and
Yeah.
actually, people aren't allowed to enclose them.
Right.
now. That's not us, that's nothing.
And then in our other house, we did, we put a porch swing and some of our best times at night, we're sitting there talking to neighbors and being part of the community. And we just felt that it was a little bit too closed off and there's no reason we wanted to open it up because it is a corner property and we get so many dog walkers and
Sure.
bus stops right there. That we love the notion of becoming a little bit more involved, intertwined into the community that way.
Well, I mean, in terms of you opening it up, I would commend your opening it up. I think that was a great call. But I would go a little further with the opening because at this point, and I was feeling this way when I was on site and we talked a little bit about like the structure, removing this sort of the structure that was part of the window structure.
We're going to remove the wood strips if that's.
You're talking about the bottom part, the actual plastic.
Yeah, I'm talking about the
Yeah.
stucco walls at the bottom. So, I mean, I think, in terms of achieving an open porch and achieving, especially on a corner, achieving a
Right.
really nice amenity.
Mhm.
I would consider removing those walls and going back to like, these sort of balustrade.
Right.
That they have in other ones, because right now it really reads as a porch that had been closed that the windows had gotten pulled out of. So I think, from a, not to try to design your project, but I think it would be really advantageous to really open it up, so that you don't have that, you don't feel like you're behind this
Right.
little wall.
Yeah, there are a lot of homes actually on the street below us. I'm not sure that it might be Hampton that do have that same condition. So I believe there's a lot of houses that have that kind of.
There are,
The solid.
but yeah, but that wouldn't happen now. I mean, the house, a number of the houses, so on Hampton and elsewhere, some of them are enclosed, they were enclosed historically in the 30s, 40s.
Right.
And some of them have really nice enclosures. Yours was not one of
Right.
those houses, we got, it's aluminum awning windows, whatever those.
They were,
Yeah,
where there was a metal on them too.
yeah.
So anyway, so there's, there are different variations on it, but, no, but I think in terms of the sort of the appeal of the house.
Mhm.
I would definitely suggest that as being one more step to take. I think it's really, especially given the fact it's on a corner, so you've got, two exposed sides of it.
Softens a little
I
bit.
could really help anchor that corner better. So, okay. Any more discussion about the dormer or which, you guys want to weigh in?
Well, look, I mean, just technically, doesn't mean the setback line. That's the. That's the most important technical.
Yeah.
Which I feel like is, that's why I didn't realize that we considered the enclosed porches to be the facade of the house, and therefore it's grandfathered in, right? So if we unenclose it, then we're saying it changed, like, we would allow it if you left the porch enclosed. But if that's the way it is, that's the way it is. But if it is, if it was allowed to project how many feet, Kevin, from the facade?
Six into the front setback.
If they built it to 7.5, they're like 18 inches.
Yeah, I thought you said that it complied, it's within 6.
Is it within 6?
Is that,
Your porch is deeper than 6 feet.
I think it is, yeah, I think that,
I think you're like 18 inches over, but
yeah.
um,
Now, did you look at that? Because I always feel the same way Adam is that it projects much more than 6 feet from the facade of the.
well, not
I
much.
think, I
But
think we, I
it
think
was
Jason, you
that.
and I talked about this on the phone, and I think we measured it on the plan somewhere. I know we talked about this on the phone.
You guys, do you have a scale drawing or anyways? It seems likely that if it's framed up to the line of the porch and if the porch is almost 8 feet deep, then that's
Right.
how deep the dormer is.
Yeah, it's just short, actually. I'm trying to look at one of the plans that gives you the best view of the dormer, kind of,
Plans show it pretty much lining up with that, lining up with the columns in the front.
an error of flood or two. In terms of, I mean, like I think the historian perspective is like, should have selected the way it was. But he didn't, and so, and then from a zoning perspective, it's probably 1 foot too big, or literally like 1 to 2 feet too big, so. Sounds like, without getting out the scale and measuring it, so that's the situation, and I mean, I would give it a foot. It's sort of done, I mean, you could obviously reframe it, but I would personally think that this one just give it a waiver and move on. And then, like you said, Dennis, I mean, try to maximize the historic character of the home going forward, you know, with the design choices, but.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think, you know, I, you know, it's, for me anyway, if we recommend the COA, I definitely would think that, making that change to the porch design would certainly help it.
Yeah, if it, just for your information, we intend to put railing, we're looking up Sears houses from, 1929. And
Yeah.
we intend to match the railings in the rear.
Okay.
If
Do
that's
railings
style.
like, use the same railings that you're gonna use in the back, if they're kind of.
Yeah, it's just the cost. I don't think we had figured on, but,
Look, I may be alone in this, I mean, I don't have a strong opinion either. I wouldn't like force the issue of baluster railing, and part of the reason is, now that the dormer is so large, you don't want it to be like,
yeah, I'm worried about the same
you
thing.
don't want like you don't want like a spindly base underneath it, you need the front of the house to be kind of have some heft, just to balance the facade out. And it reads to me like the stucco brick is pretty old at this point, like, you know, if not from the 20s, then probably from the 50s, and so it's, I don't know, it's amenable to that, but it's not done yet, obviously, you know, but as long as you can see when you're sitting in your porch swing, as long as you can actually see out of your porch.
Yes.
You know, as a solid railing, you know, because there are porches that are built from the get-go as masonry structures.
This isn't one of them, you know, no, I was just trying to sort of think we could at least recapture a better design on the porch. I'm less worried about the sort of the dormer. I mean, the dormer is a very heavy element. But I don't think putting more, sort of a more feasible or more appropriate railing system below is going to really change that. Or sort of give the house more heft. You know, I just think it's getting rid of those masonry walls is like, it's part of opening the porch back up again. You've seen the buildings on like the next block over where they had removed any closed porch, and they went back to a railing system, and it looks good. It looks like an open porch. This one kind of, you know, with leaving that wall, it kind of becomes my favorite thing. I mean, I'm guessing that the brick pillars probably, one of us said there are square pillars on the house down the street too, so I'm not sure what that construction was, but this particular design did have square pillars, so, anyway.
Looking at the Google Earth going down the street, Google Street View, and seeing actually a variety, and some are enclosed, some are not. We have wood pillars that are square. We have wood pillars that are round. That one I'm referencing seems to be original, that is a round wood pillar, and then spindle type wooden fence. So there's a variety going down the street.
Yeah.
There are some that have a substantial masonry rectangular type pillar like the one in place. Several have that with the, okay, if I'm looking at 241, I don't know if we can get this view. for us to all look at. That there's some interesting, things to note on some of the neighboring properties. It's a wide variety of type of, pillar. Yeah.
No, I'm sure that that's the case. My main comment was I thought it was a better design choice and tying it back to what you're doing in the back and linking those up, I think is an advantageous thing for the house.
I mean, yeah, I mean, well. If you look at the house across the street, across Meeting House Lane, it has a 24-inch solid masonry railing. And so does its sibling next to it. There's like a row of them, so it's, you know, it's a vaguely Italianate kind of move to have, but I mean, whatever,
Yeah.
it's. There's 3 in a row that have these solid masonry portions, and
Well, the one that I showed you, the one I sent you the photo of, has a solid porch, has a solid masonry bottom.
yeah, so not being a total, like, I wouldn't be surprised if. Certainly if they weren't built that way, I kind of think they were built that way, but
Yeah.
if they were built that way, clearly. There was a cultural moment where everyone
They were
did the same
modified
thing, so yeah, but I kind of think they, you know,
Cultural moment.
cultural moment, you know, that the cultural practice, you know, make it vernacular, but they may have been built that way, and some of them, people may have actually added to the masonry to increase their, you know,
Well, there was that cultural moment when there was stuccoing everything, where every brick first story got stuck
yeah,
up.
but these are some of the more handsome houses in the neighborhood, like there's, you know, as opposed to the ones that have been, that, where there have been modifications that,
Well, remember, Iona and Hampton probably had more people who did stucco than any place else in the borough in terms of.
Yeah, and our intention with the ceiling on the exposed porches to do tongue and groove.
Yeah,
Traditional.
tongue and groove on it, yeah.
Like
Yeah,
real pine.
mentioned that, I think.
Yeah, real pine.
Yeah, I think you mentioned that when we were on site, right. All right, so, all right, so it was just sort of a design discussion about potential for the porch, but, you know, clearly it's not something we're gonna, you know, we're gonna require. I mean, it was really an idea of, something that would have improved this particular porch, but,
I think when we remove the door and clean it all up and, you know, put fresh paint on everything, it'll look very nice.
but I believe that particular, those particular walls, I think are probably a function of the size of the windows that they were putting in. I think it was the windows that defined what that, I don't think that wall predated the windows that put in. I think that was part of the same design, but, okay, so the main issue is, you know, in terms of recommending an approval for the COA with the dormer as it's currently framed. And I mean, is everybody on board with it? No.
well, I mean, Carl, one sort of element to think through is just that this house now. Its main facade is Meeting House Lane, like it's, you know, now. Big on Meeting House Lane, and the rear of the house is a substantial extension, so. In some ways, the modification to the front, while, you know, is a change, it visually, it kind of weighs the front a little heavier to balance the
So you
back.
think that's better?
And I kind of feel like actually the original one, in some ways you could argue is a little snuggy now. Because
Well, but you can't.
right at the back of the house, which you can, which despite being in the quote third lot layer, is really in the first lot layer in reality,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
I think it will look lighter in the back once the windows are all cut and they're not cut.
It absolutely, when it's finished, and I'm not begrudging that, like, you know, I don't actually have that much of an issue with it, but I'm actually just arguing like whether or not the, you know, and I don't think that if you were to ask permission, you would have gotten it.
That's right.
But I don't know that enforcement demolition is really justice served.
Well, it wouldn't be forcing the demolition, we would be cutting it back. I mean, it's been framed and it's been achieved, but that's, you know,
And we're-
And
and roof.
It's a pretty big effort. at this
That's
point.
significant.
Yeah.
I would ask a process question. How did we get to this point? I mean, if it were approved and built as approved, then there's no case to me. But if it were approved and built not as approved, that's a different matter. From a legal process perspective.
It was not on the plan, sir. It was not on the plans as being modified. We just wanted to lower the windows and then we ended up with a framer that had some ideas. Literally, we showed up one day and he just bumped it out. So it was not our literal direction. I think they were just trying to do a good thing. I don't think anybody thought of the historic
This is a
feature.
framer who was working for you guys.
So my general
Working for your GC.
2 tiers down.
Okay, so that's a huge change for nobody up the chain to be aware of it, you as an owner.
Have you worked with contractors?
I absolutely have, and I know that as an owner, you have to keep your eyeballs on.
We try our best, sir.
That's a pretty big.
I mean, I don't know of any,
That's quite a change.
it's quite a change.
And it's definitely.
I've never known a framer plan to take that kind of liberty, to bump it warmer out 4 feet, 4 inches forward of where you've been, and I'm sorry, that's a little bit much to, you know, just to know that there wasn't acceptance of it along the line, so, it just, doesn't pass the straight face test, you know, so.
But as I said, we asked for the windows to be lowered. We thought he was gonna build a trough. That was the conversation, so. I hope you would recognize that we're trying to be credible here.
Changes. Consideration, because, you know, somebody took some significant liberties that affected this thing in a significant way.
Oh, you could sue your contractor. Get them to do it for free to fix it.
We think it presents nicely as framed, so obviously we did not direct it to be done.
If you want to keep it,
Yes, we will.
but in all seriousness, if it was actually the contractor that ignored the plans, then I would. And just from a liability
Trying to
perspective.
talk to him.
I understand. There was rotten wood up there. Like I said, there was work that needed to be done to correct it, and we did ask that the windows be lowered. Very odd inside that room.
Well, that's the room you got, that's the house you got, you know, it's a house that allows you to put a really sizable addition on the back, so. It's like you gotta work with the house you have and add a goofy little front bedroom, I know exactly what it's, you know. So. That's where a dresser went probably, you know, I mean, under those windows. And there's not much you can do with that, that's the major bedroom in the house, so that's. Was that just?
That's not we work with that.
Yeah, no, I'm sure not. Well. the
I
concern-
have a suggestion that if we were to agree to accept as it is built now, what can we do on, and Dennis, you had as well reflected on what can we do on the porch design that can
mitigate it. somewhat.
Yeah. What would that be? We talked about it a little bit, but I don't know if we came to a conclusion.
But we're doing the tongue roof ceiling, which we'll show to the street because it's high up in the house. You'll see that.
What about those walls? Did we come to agreement on how we feel about those
I
walls?
think somebody suggested they might be original because a lot of the other homes right close to us have very similar conditions.
Yeah, I don't know, if it's brick or cinder block, I don't know what's in them.
It's a common detail on the form.
It's consistent. Yeah. Okay,
I mean, the porch in the back will have traditional rails like we were researching. So that will help keep the historic look. The steps up to the home from the street will also have the same kind of rails.
I think unenclosing the porch is a win, to be honest. It's gonna make the house more, like the window, those fifties windows weren't really,
Oh, yeah.
you know,
What does the unenclosing of the porch mean, Adam, in terms of the wall? Are you saying keep the wall or not?
well, I mean, like, look, I think the dormer, in terms of mitigating the change to the lines of the house.
Yeah.
The unenclosing the porch shrinks the square footage in interior. You can heat those porches and you can condition them if you want to. And so, it's sort of being compensated by enlarging the dormer. But the street character is improved with the open porch. And it is returning it to more of its original as-built condition porch.
Yeah. So my question is about that wall. Are you saying,
Oh, the whole spandrel.
That wall, well, I think what he's saying, I think it's probably is that wall, whereas I was seeing it as something that had been added as part of the enclosure. It may well have been an original condition and that other houses on the street sport that same wall of a sort of a masonry wall capped by a brick. house.
So I'm actually seeing both, so it's kind of hard to get it.
I think that's been a consistent struggle in the neighborhood. You're not craftsman, you're not colonial, you're not, it's a very hard definition when you're trying to look around for design, inspiration and or consistency of the time period.
Yeah.
I guess it is a Sears home, it's we have a really difficult time identifying what is this house, what are you?
But also, so many of them are modified, so many of them are changed,
Yes.
so it's really hard to identify.
It really is, and I would love to
There are a lot
learn
of
more about
little
it.
neighborhood like Hampton, I know, a lot of very kind of densely packed developer houses.
Yeah,
Some of them had architects, some of them, you can sort of, like there was a lot of, these were mostly again built in the 19 teens,
right,
or early 20s. So, once you begin looking at it, you do sort of see ones that were clearly done by the same guys. There's some records that would indicate sort of developed these initially, but that whole area was kind of getting developed. Just right around the first work. And they're kind of, some of them are more Dutch colonial, because, this what I think would be considered a Dutch colonial, but some of them have gambrel roots, which are sort of more obvious, So, but this is.
I think it's very, I think this is the ensemble of these couple of houses are very Midwestern. I mean, I don't know about if they're from Sears, but when we talk about Sears is a Chicago company.
Yeah.
And, Western bungalows are fantastic. They're not actually the most common type here in the Northeast or in Philly. But there probably were influences, particularly from, say, the late teens to the early 20s, where you're getting some of that Midwestern aesthetic. They often building out of wood out there, but Chicagoland is a lot of brick as well. So I mean, to me, there's, as you said, there's a developer. Probably most likely several of these are all the same construction company, and they follow the same pattern, the bumped out kitchen or whatever, right, and so on. So, but I think I just think you argued like we're returning the porch closer to its original condition, probably is best that we can figure it out. We're unenclosing the porch, so we're sort of. I mean, anyway, that's the mitigation at this point. Because the only other thing you can do is to try to put the door back to what it was.
Yeah.
This would have been an interesting example of how the historic photos to have as a reference, but unfortunately, we don't, seeing a variety of things with that wall and the brick pillar, and some with the brick pillar and without the wall. So.
Let me look and see if we have anything on this house, because we may. And maybe some.
It's just, my street's from 1905 to 1910 or whatever, it's all wooden porches for the most part. Whereas these, to me, like it's all pretty much concrete porches, so I think it was.
You were earlier, your street's much.
Yeah, I think 10 or 15 years later.
I thought it was built like 23, 24, but I'm not certain.
That would stand, yeah, that would.
Do you feel though that if you were opening that porch, that it creates a very spindly look because the width of the pillars themselves are not that large and it gets that chunky feel from the
Yeah,
wall.
well,
So
that's what I-
that's my concern is that they will feel so anemic,
That's what I was saying. is that
even
you walk
without the
around-
dormer, it feel anemic. That, and I walk around and I see that detail a lot in Narberth. I'm like, I'm a big person on like dimensions and scale. It just seems like it would be off scale.
Well, it's your dormer that's gonna make it.
I don't think that is what I'm referring to. I think in general, the size of the house and the height of the house compared to the width of the
Yeah,
pillars.
Which is elevated.
Right.
I do wonder if there's anything you can do to make it.
so this was built by 1919. It turns up in 1919.
19.
In the map, the 1919 map. You got a family in there in 1920.
So that's
Two daughters and a son. And then 1930, it's owned by someone else. And they all owned it. It became a rental, and by the 1940 census, it was a rental, but,
Oh, gosh.
you know,
The information.
this is, there's a website, that, Friends of Norfolk History put together. And it has census data, so it's actually kind of interesting. So if there are historic photographs, maybe there too. I don't think we've turned up any on that one yet.
It just amazes me when I'm going around the neighborhood on Meeting House and Iona, looking at very similar houses, how different they all are. Some are enclosed, some are open, some are one material, some are another.
Yeah.
Some have that wall, some don't. Funky arch.
Okay, all right, so, so where are we, guys? Kevin? What's your thought on this?
I guess really my thought is just go down the mitigation line of thought and
Yeah.
do the best we can at this point. I mean, as a rule of thumb with process, I think Adam's right, like that counterfactual, would we have done this if no, we wouldn't have,
No,
but, I haven't looked up and down the block and can make no recommendations about good porch design at this point, but we can do that later.
I can take another look at it, but I'm sort of more, sort of come around to the notion that it very well may have been in an original condition. Given, very, very similar houses, in fact, the same design house, that's a few doors down, that does have a masonry. It does not have an enclosed porch, but it does have a masonry wall, so,
The pillar and wall and.
yeah.
Pillars being brick. Square.
Yeah, it's the one like further down, you go a little further down the street. This is the one that, I shot the one that has the awning, that one. Yeah. So that's the same house. It has a front end,
It's got the same wall, but like without the wall, right, you can see actually
Sorry.
they have the column is on a pier. It's, you see what I'm saying, like, they were going with the masonry at this point.
It's a straight column though, right? It's not a column sitting on. It's just it's a straight pier.
Is it a masonry pier with
I think so.
a wood column, well, you mean with the awning one?
The awning one, yeah, I thought that was masonry, all masonry.
I think they're brick columns, yeah.
Yeah,
It's just-
Yeah, essentially, yeah,
it's
And
just
that's the
stuck
one
up.
to the left.
yeah.
Yeah, so there's three in a row that have the brick columns. The one on the right shows you like a brick base with, round column, whatever material it is. And that's what it would look like, more like that if you take out if you put in the,
Right.
and that's with an iron railing again, it's which is the widest, the widest and most Italian.
Yeah.
Look you can
And
get.
those are later columns, because those are very skinny. That's.
And they're sort of semi-colonial, and like, these aren't really colonial houses, they're Chicago.
Well, I know you're pushing this Midwest thing, but I don't think that's the case, but.
I'm just saying like aesthetically, I mean, and then, you know, they're cost-effective versions, I mean, like a true, you know, Craftsman bungalow will have like knee braces under the eaves and wider eaves and stuff, but these are the, cost-effective.
Anyway, well, we don't need to drag these poor folks through our discussions of like the building nuances, but, anyway, so.
We're learning.
But I mean, to me, this is troubling, because this is, again, if if someone had proposed this, we would not be signing off on it. So the thing that you know, sort of bothers me about it is, you know, the notion that, you know, better to ask forgiveness than to ask for permission, because it's already there, and you know, we don't wanna, you know, we don't wanna make you pull it off, but I mean, if this is something that your contractor did without your knowledge, they would be pulling it off and it would be on them. You know, it wouldn't be on you, but
If
you
you
might.
didn't like the change, you'd be.
If you didn't like the change,
Doesn't-
I'd like the
It
change.
doesn't match the approved plan set,
Right,
so if the borough doesn't, you know, that's the way it works.
That's right.
So.
okay, so, should we go around and thumbs up or thumbs down on it?
And then we're gonna go around again with any stipulations on the seal,
Sure.
right?
Yeah, sure.
I'll say thumbs up.
I mean, I'll let it pass, you know, it's the lesser of two evils.
Yeah,
No, I'm sorry,
so no, okay,
no.
right.
Thumbs up.
Kevin?
Approve.
Okay. I would approve it also, but I'm holding my nose on it, because I don't think I think it was a bad decision. And, you know, if indeed this was done without anyone's knowledge, you know, it shows a failure to stay on top of a project, so. Anyway, all right, so let's talk about mitigation. What,
I mean, I'd like to see drawings on the design for that porch, whatever it will be, as updated as possible.
We're gonna leave the elements that are there, we strip out all the wood that was holding the old frame, so we'll clean it up as best as possible to the existing structure without the windows. Tongue and groove ceiling fan, putting a light on the wall, a porch light of historic, you know, consistent nature. Happy to provide that to you folks if you'd like to see it.
Stairs.
We're gonna replace the broken stairs. We're gonna put railings on the two sets of steps that go from the street up to the yard. And then another set of
What do the railings
steps.
look like?
We're happy to provide them. We're gonna do consistent with
The rear,
historic well.
with the rear,
And then they'll be the same as the rear as well. Yes, it will be all one style that we were researching, kind of heavy, you know, two balusters with a nice heavy rail that looked like they were very consistent with the style of home we were looking.
so what are they gonna be made out
We were back and forth on wood or steel.
on the baluster?
Both. Yes,
Steel?
steel, painted white. I mean, they're steel now.
What steel now?
like tubular pipe railing.
Well, they would be fashionable. They would be made to look like a traditional one. The only reason we would consider steel, powder coated steel would be because of maintenance. But we're happy to submit shop drawings to you folks to review before we proceed with the railings. So there will be 4 stair railings, and then there will be the railings around the rear porch. And the rear porch will also be tongue and groove ceiling.
I'm just writing it all down here.
If you have any samples that you believe are consistent with the neighborhood that you approved before, we're happy to look.
It appears people are looking at other porches and seeing what is in character with the neighborhood. Is that what we're doing? Maybe not.
I'm telling you,
Okay.
when I go up and down the street, I see no consistency.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's the problem when you're trying to get something, perhaps the reference is from old photos rather than from what's existing down the street.
Bits of railing that are there don't seem appropriate,
It's a real where.
that are here.
I do have a little bit of a administrative concern here. I just want everyone to know about. I don't mind any sort of stipulations. We just need to be careful with how we word them. Because council needs to, well, if we, it sounds like we granted it, they need to approve it next Thursday.
Recommendation.
council needs to approve it before next Thursday.
Next Thursday, yeah, so we're not obviously gonna have all of these
That may be final, but it would be.
precise stipulations outlined by that time.
Can you just say that again?
Say it again, Kevin?
So administratively, I just want to make sure we're careful with how we word because our council needs to approve next Thursday. Right. Laptop almost died there. Yeah, so I just think how we word it could say like applicant and Har will mutually agree to something rather than a very specific condition.
Okay.
So there would be a conditional COA. Conditioned upon the agreement on the design materials for the porch rail.
Rear?
We're not being rear. Well, no,
Front?
we're interested in the rear of the house. I mean, because we want them to have a night, but it's not really,
I said just the porch rail.
yeah. Well, I mean, I would kind of, I would think going with, well, so you're talking about powder coated steel. I'm just wondering if that's a better system than going with even sort of like a either a cedar or, I mean, you know, go with wooden railing, or even, you know, sort of a paintable AZAC or something. You know?
Exactly, moves a lot, it moves, you know, it's just.
Well, a lot of the vinyls move, but I don't think the AZAC does. So it's, you're not using it.
I've seen a lot of AZAC decks that are twisted and,
It's AZAC.
that's the plastic stuff. Yeah, we're trying to stay away from that, we would rather use original type materials. We're just either or.
What?
Do that for trailers later.
We want to try to articulate something just as a rough draft and
Yeah, I mean,
can workshop it.
I'm totally alone. I would probably put a masonry wall in the back too. I mean, maybe it's not so important. I think it would actually read better, but it may not be more fun to use your porch. Because it would be more like, what you now have is what you want to do is compose that facade facing Meeting House Lane to hold together as a single house. And so your front, if you're gonna keep your masonry wall on your front porch, you know, you essentially have a larger circular porch on the back.
I think they're designed for the addition. I think what they have designed as the porch articulation works with their addition a lot better. I'm,
Okay.
it's its own thing.
What is the
It really
cladding on
fine
the
with addition?
What is the cladding on the addition?
It's going to be the same as I showed you here.
Party cement. Yeah.
Same as that.
Not covered.
It's planks. It's,
Oh,
all
that, I know
Yeah.
the picture.
It's gonna be, yes.
right, I mean. The rest of the house is stucco.
It's not all covered.
Now, I'm looking at the photo of it.
Yeah, the high area is stucco, the lower part is brick.
Yeah, it's brick and stucco, but now you're introducing the third material, which is the pine side.
That's true.
I think the condition that I would like to see, is that,
How many roof ceilings?
well, that was happening anyway, but, no, I mean, the building is a very simple building, it has, it has very straightforward 1-over-1 windows, so you're replacing the windows?
All new windows.
All new
The
windows.
windows were already replaced, and they were all old vinyl.
They were
Right.
Yeah,
almost broken.
right, exactly. I think the house probably didn't, so anyway, what's in there, what you're replacing with is 1-over-1s. What are the ones you're using for the addition? It looks like there's, are those like,
We're not following the design drawing, we're doing clear bottom with a 4 on the top.
and it's just an applied fucking grid? Okay, sorry, so these drawings, I don't have to pay attention to these drawings because they're not real.
They're not, they were architectural plans, they weren't finished, like, an interior design plan, I mean, it was structural plans, that's what they. It's not a guideline.
It is not, it may seem persnickety perhaps, but architectural plans do specify the windows, especially in the historic district. And
Right.
Narberth has the most permissive historic district commonwealth practically, but a lot of other districts would specify very clearly.
Well, it's gonna be the same window that's shown on the drawing, but the bottom is gonna be clear, it's a very common detail.
The bottom clear being a single light is the most common design, and divided lights on the upper is also quite common, but the rest of your sort of 1920s house is 1-over-1, so it's. You're introducing a colonial detail into a ready cut house.
No, they're all gonna be new.
Right.
Yeah. All the
Well, I was saying, I would go with a little bit route because you're not doing a pure divided light.
windows are ordered, they're made.
I understand, but you know what, but nothing's, all this stuff has happened. Is your architect involved in the project at all?
This is, may I just ask, the historic commission is, we're trying to make a historically accurate home, we're not throwing some glass and, we're trying to make a house that matches the neighborhood, so.
But 4-over-1 is not, that's just it, like, that's not.
Wait, we don't have the definition of what the house is, I mean, there's no standard in Norfolk, that's you walk around, like, you look around and there's everything, there's no way for us
Look,
to.
I've been totally working with you all night, so
No, no.
carefully, the rest of your house is 1-over-1, so why would, that's all we're saying, it doesn't make any sense.
They're actually, a replacement windows, the original windows were not.
They probably were.
The window, but all of the Google Street photos for the last, the windows that you replaced were also 1-over-1. So that's like they weren't maybe the original ones, but 1-over-1 is the most common system of lights of all of your, basically all that, there are a few houses with divided lights, but it's, 1-over-1 is, I don't know.
Yeah. And even so, I mean, it's not, it's just, a mutton grid looks like a mutton grid. I mean, to me, a 1-over-1 is a more reasonable window
And
because
why would you not want it to be consistent?
waiting,
Saying they're all 1-over-1, why would it?
Yeah, I know,
not be
I-
consistent?
yeah, I mean, that's my feeling too. So these are, how are these sandwich buttons? I mean, is it the grid is the glass or what's the?
I mean, the one across, the new one that's right down the street, 204, has a divider at the top, I mean. Well, they're 1 over divided by 2 on top.
Well, but they're not true divided. It's a grid that's applied to a solid piece of glass or a sandwich.
I'm just looking at the picture, I don't know what it is, I don't know how ours were made.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's sandwiched between the glass or surface mount.
Unless you bought expensive windows with service, I mean, it's possible you bought really fancy glad lights, but. That's even just swap us. Yes, it has divided lights and it's in single light windows. But you know that, and most people with divided lights these days prefer the single pane picture window, and they essentially screw it up, and either they buy the single pane with fake lights, or they buy single pane windows with no lights, and so it would be unusual for someone to purchase a
Pretty much, yeah, of course, that's why to me, it's a simple house. You know, going with just the one really make the most sense. I think there's an automatic response to try to go with a grid. For whatever reason, but- Well, you know, if we're looking for things that we can condition to mitigate the adverse effect of the storm, that would be the one thing that I would say would help me to mitigate it. You know, this is have a, you know, on the addition as well. So you've got this at least a unified type.
Windows. I think it's obvious that one, but. You know, it's the same situation as we're dealing with former. They had the windows bought.
Yeah.
So, you know. I was the only one who said no,
Yeah.
the door. So,
But on this plan that was submitted, it does show the windows with the munsets.
There you go.
What do you mean
They're
there?
not real buttons.
Okay, but it shows the one. Give me a proper,
It's already
Sure.
approved with the mountains.
Yeah,
with the lights.
Yeah, no, yeah, no, that's not, yeah.
And, you know, that's significant.
But
If it were approved as something else,
we didn't review.
No, we didn't review it. And that's not something,
That's-
in the addition, that's
and-
not something.
but it was approved.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's something significant about it being approved and decisions made, business decisions made according to that.
But I understand what Dennis is suggesting is, can the windows be installed without the muntins?
Right.
Yeah.
And they'll work fine. If they cannot, if they have to have the muntins, then the cost of those windows is the same as reframing to front of the panel. Or nearly so, you know, like economically, it's.
Check it, I mean, they haven't delivered the windows yet.
I mean, next week.
We'll find out how they're constructed. Find out if is this a grid that's applied to the exterior? Is it applied to the interior? Is it screened?
We want to work with you folks, but it's our choices, what's on the plans.
Yeah, but you know, you did build your dormer into the front setback, it's illegal.
Well, it's.
As built, I mean, you can get a waiver from the municipality perhaps, but I'm like, and maybe I'm wrong, if I'm wrong, I'd rather be wrong. But if you let your contractor build something that doesn't match the approved plans and doesn't meet the zoning. Well, it's a regulatory issue and it sets a bad precedent that anyone can just break the rules. And just paper it over, so I mean, like, we are working pretty strongly here.
Not our goal. No, yeah, we want to work with you. We're here to, you know, to try to find, you know, how you're trying to see this be constructed and the things that we're gonna add in the future, have them be consistent with the neighborhood.
See, I don't want, the thing is though, one of my concerns, I mean, these decisions are not inferior precedent setting. But I don't want somebody to come in and say, well, you let them put that bigger dormer on that building, because, you know, you've already framed it, so we're trying to figure out a way in which we can let you do that, but I don't feel good about it. I mean, you know, Carl voted no, I came very close to voting no. And, you know, it's, well, you know,
Change your mind.
you know, I can certainly,
Charles looking for votes.
yeah,
Well, sorry, consider.
you know. To not be, I mean, you know, it's just, it's mind boggling to not be on top of a construction project of that extent. But, you know, it just, it doesn't make any sense once.
We did notice it right away. We didn't say that we didn't know, we noticed it weeks later. We noticed it right away. So we spoke to the contractor about it. But obviously, as was stated here already, it makes the room larger, the windows look good. We think the dormer looks good. So we request that you stick with that approval, and we would like to work with you on other changes to make it consistent with how you.
All right, so we're talking about windows. You've already ordered the windows, so we're not getting anywhere with that. You know, with trying to have a window that's a little more simple on the you know, simpler pairing on the addition.
What's the potential of changing the order?
They're coming on Wednesday.
Next
I mean,
week.
they'll be manufactured.
They're coming. But I think looking to see whether or not the grids can be removed. If they're an inexpensive window,
If the grids are on the inside of the glass, for example, they're just,
no.
yeah, if they're on the outside.
If they're on the outside, or if they're
May not be.
attached on the inside, I don't know. If it's not between the panes, I mean, it might be attached to the inside. They'll just pop off. But that would be the thing to find out.
They're not treated by the lights.
They're not true to my story.
Well, I mean, even like, what I mean by true too is
I
that
know what you mean.
sometimes they put a foam core grid to get the shadows in there because. Anyway, this
I know what you
is a little passion project of mine, so not for your house, but for my own. I've been through a lot with windows. I, as a sidebar, like I lived in a property that had protected windows. I literally could only order like from one company because this isn't the city of Philadelphia, but like there was an easement on the actual windows.
Wow.
And that's what I mean, we're actually extremely permissive here.
Yeah, we don't regulate much at all. So, you know, who do you want the windows from?
Crystal,
Crystal, are they local or?
they're in outside New York.
Okay, so it's stuck for what else we could be talking about?
I thought when you said the front railings, there has to be railings along the steps in the front, so we said we would be willing to share those with you for review in front of the house. They're gonna match the ones in the back of the house.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, that's not, you know. Okay, I'm gonna be a no on the dormer right now, so it's gonna be 2 against and 3 or 4 in favor of. I don't think there's anything there's not enough that can be done that would mitigate the adverse effect of the larger dormer. But,
Is that because of the windows?
no, it's just that there's kind of nothing that could sort of mitigate it, but I mean, it doesn't really matter because, you know, you've got four votes in favor of and only 2 against. But it's just, to me, it's a bad precedent to be setting. So,
it's a bad precedent, but. Sorry.
Yeah, no, and I get you, I understand. But see, what comes down to me is if this had been proposed to us as a design element, I don't think we would have supported it. So I have to go with that as a, the fact that it exists as a framed element, doesn't change that. So anyway, okay, so, but we will write, so Kevin, so council meets next week.
Yeah, next Thursday, and as long as we know we're putting it in for COA approval, Kevin, I can wait on the text for that, the stipulations, maybe by Monday. I just need to have it in the packet by the end of the day, Monday, so that they can review it if they have any questions for me.
So that be, is there any addition to the entrance railing leading up the steps?
Well, I thought, I'm sorry. For the, like, isn't it?
What's that?
You don't wanna,
Yeah. I'd like to know how malleable the windows are, because I really think that they would, one of them was really a lot better. And that's something that I really like to see. If indeed, they're not buttons that are placed between the two pieces of glass. Because it's probably the same window they mark it as a 101, they just modify it with the attached grid. It's
What
probably,
they do, stick it over the top of the glass,
yeah,
just with some kind of,
they're just like screwed
stick on.
into, yeah, sometimes they are, yeah, okay, yeah. Yeah, if you had a cut sheet on the windows, that would be helpful to know. The ones that make you wonder, I guess your contractor did all the ordering of the windows, is that right?
We ordered the windows.
You ordered them, okay. So you will know what kind of windows they are. Okay,
I told you, they were. I told you exactly what they were. They're just like on the drawing, except it's single down on the bottom.
Well, it doesn't tell me how the window, it's not a shop drawing, it doesn't tell me how the windows.
We
are
can look
actually-
into that.
Can you put it up, let me know?
A little bit of shop, and they're just like this with clear on the bottom.
there's a garage thing.
Well, the question is underneath of how it's.
Yeah. How are these windows? That's telling.
Is the garage being added, please? Back?
When a window
Yeah,
manufacturer
it's all,
would give you, is they would give you a sheet that really shows the structure.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay.
So what are you working with about the
I think they
windows?
said they were doing an ADU.
Yeah.
Are you doing an ADU in the rear?
Yes,
That's what they're doing as well.
okay, well, I mean, if we could get that over the next day or two, because I want to be able to have that information if we were going to suggest a change there. Okay, so I think we're all set. It'll be a conditional approval. It's just we're a little bit up in the area about what that exact condition is going to be. And Kevin, we'll work with you on that. Okay,
Good.
okay, great, okay. So the good news for you guys, it is getting approved. We're not quite sure about what other elements.
Well, just since this is my first one, actually.
Yeah.
So do we advise council and they approve it, or?
We advise council, they,
So we just had-
we're recommending approval, so, there's a record of action. that I would put together, that, spells it out.
You know, spell out the split vote.
And
It will, yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Good.
Very kind.
Very bad.
I mean, I know you guys value history, we do as well, so we're trying to build a nice homes.
It is also, it's beyond the architectural elements, which as a matter of process, it really puts the borough in a bad position to, a lot of their other municipalities would force you to build plans.
I understand. We appreciate you, again, not our intent, but I understand.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.
Be more careful going forward if we make any other plans, okay?
You know what? Hey, listen, you know what? Always have, have conversations early. I mean,
Yeah, we
we're
will.
happy to talk. We're always happy to talk but just, all I can say is like moving forward. If indeed this got by you, it can't get by you. You have to be on this. If you don't have an architect who's involved with the project, who's gonna alert you to stuff, you don't have a contractor who's gonna alert you to stuff, you've got framers who are acting on their own. That's ludicrous.
Well, we check it out every other day, every day, so we're on top of it. Okay. Thank you, Dennis.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, we can have. All right, the rest, let's get through the rest of the agenda. I kind of would like to, this definitely went longer than I anticipated.
I actually had to leave at 8:15, so I'm almost 20 minutes late. I apologize.
Okay, yeah.
I just want to get to the end of
Hit the
that.
button.
Sorry,
anyone
we
has
had
any-
the discussion of the plot button grids.
Yeah, if anyone has any questions for the zoning portion of that, or I actually kind of wanted to give you some thoughts about why I voted a certain way I did, but now that it's done, it kind of doesn't matter unless you're interested. But you know how to reach me or shoot me an email, okay?
Right, but no, is there anything else you want to let us know before you bail out? Would be fine. I mean, in terms of like the project, Adam's comments about, this thing not even meeting zoning.
Yeah, I mean, we already voted, so I guess what's done's done. So I thought it was like two ways why I kind of leaned one way. So if I felt like they took something that we didn't want, which was obviously the dormer, and they gave us something that we prefer, which is unenclosing the porch, so they kind of equaled out. And then it's difficult because they do meet zoning according to the plans and the conversation that Jason and I had on the most recent revisions. Just so you're aware, Dennis, the ones you sent out were like 2 iterations ago. So there's
I know.
yes, so I've had like 5 revisions for this project already. I think it's hard to kind of deny something that meets zoning, even though we can technically.
I hate to be a stickler.
Yeah.
I can't measure the porch, but you said 4 feet. And the porch is more than 4 feet deep. So
Yeah, we went out there and measured in person too before it was done, and obviously I don't have X-ray vision, but I think it was just under. I want to say it was like 5'4", 5'5" was what the extension was from that front facade. So his drawings have to match that. If it's 6'2" or 6'6" or 6'8", he'll have to cut back a portion of it. That's on him.
And okay, because even the most recent set of drawings don't match reality. So it's not as if they've got it worked out. The most recent set, which it's not the ones that I set out, they found the ones that he submitted subsequently to that. Because he had windows as like 4/4s, and they're not. And again, I don't have a lot of confidence in how far that dormer is actually projecting. All I know
Right.
is what he said. So.
The other thing that I find really interesting is I know that there is an existing or was an existing dormer there, so that's how we kind of have to sink our teeth into this. If there were no dormer there and this was just a pitched roof, if he wanted to come in and put a dormer there as big as it is now, we had no purview and it'd be allowed by zoning.
Because he's not removing anything, right?
Right, yeah, so that's a little tricky.
No, that's right. I think, there's the matter of what the historic district doesn't heavily regulate aesthetics in architecture. That's just the way it is.
Right, that's right.
But that's where, if you're saying, but the zoning does regulate where the facade is. I thought the facade line, just because you enclose the porch doesn't mean that you get to build closer than all your neighbors. But you're sort of saying, well, no, we define the new enclosed porch as the existing as-built facade, which I don't, that's not what I understood. I thought your true facade is the house, not the porch, but either way, by unenclosing it, you would, you know, if you're saying that we allow 4 feet dormers on top of a porch, then that's what the code says. And if they build 6 or 7, it's not code compliant.
Yeah, six is the maximum. So it just all of this has to go back with a really goofy facade definition, which is what changed and it matched the Saldo definition. So Saldo definitions have to go from front structural wall, and obviously that unenclosed porch wall is no longer structural, other than it's holding up the roof for the front porch. So it's pretty tricky. Which is also why we don't allow people to enclose porches, because if you were to do that, and it were walls, not a screened-in porch, they were walls technically now. You know, I know it's not structural because there was an existing front facade that's acting as your structural, but it's the walls. So I think the definition also says like enclosed walls. So
Yeah.
on paper, this meets zoning, and
Unless there's a serious issue. Like these folks have.
And but just to be clear, like, I think they were like, well, we only pushed it out by whatever it was. But the zoning would, like you said, it's like whatever the zoning says that you can encroach on the building line for a front dormer is what you can encroach. And if it encroaches further than that, it's not compliant.
That's right.
So they need a waiver.
Right.
they would actually, I mean, they would need a variance from the zoning hearing board. And yeah, and I don't know.
But what case would they make for their variance?
Built in.
There's not. They
We
created.
built it wrong. We're on top of our project. We didn't have an architect, please, working on. Overseas.
I mean, I don't know. The irony of that is that, and I'm not trying to throw the neighbor that recently sold his house directly next door under the bus, but he'd not no bad intentions tried to enclose his porch to actually match 231 about 5 years ago. And
Yes,
he tried to get a variance and got denied. So
it did.
he had to remove everything he had done. So I don't think that'd be a good look.
Yeah, in our case, it
There was a request after the fact to get a variance after he had already closed it.
It was framed and same level of finishes there as what these folks did, yeah. They framed and had plywood up, right?
I think at the end of the day, they just need to, Jason and I need to kind of be on the same page with meeting the zoning, like for sure. If it's, he's shown me what he has, and if it's over the 6 foot that's allowable, he's gonna have to chop that off regardless of whether he approved it or not. We're not approving the plans. Harb's not sealing the plans, stamping them. I am. So if they're not right to what he builds, it just because he got a COA from us doesn't mean it doesn't need to meet zoning. I think that's what Adam's kind of saying. So
All right, well, I appreciate that secondary line of defense, so.
and this actually kind of came
And that
back
one
to.
has teeth to it, honestly, I mean, because we are merely a recommendation to council.
Right, and I think this came back to Dennis, the conversation I had with you on one of our earlier SOAs where I was saying, does the Harb want to stamp off on actual physical plans and make them part of the record? Because if they deviate from them, do I need to come back to Harb?
well. Maybe.
Yeah,
I mean, by the way, the dormer would be moved if they don't unenclose the porch. That's where it's a weird situation, right? So they're choosing to change by unclosing the porch, which is objectively probably a nice thing to do.
I think, weren't they opening up the porch anyway? I mean, that wasn't contingent, that wasn't in response to the dormer.
But I mean, if they didn't want to rip off the dormer.
Right.
To comply with zoning, they could keep the porch enclosed, is my point.
They could have, if they had already taken the windows out.
Well, they put it back.
No, they can't, okay. I don't think, right, Kevin, they can't put them back now.
But what?
The
Yeah,
porch
yeah,
is-
now the approved plans get back to them. They show an unenclosed porch. So once you kind of do that and then voluntarily remove them, that's what you have now. So if like their approved plans had said they were replacing it, they can do that obviously.
Well, the plan you circulated showed the porch enclosed.
Yeah, it's still, I mean, the plan that I have and the one I circulated, which was an earlier plan, and the one that I just copied and that they had, if both of those still show the porch enclosed, you have,
Yeah, they sure
have a
are.
version, Kevin, that shows it open?
Like I said, I've had like 6 versions of this plan, but the most recent I
Yeah.
have is, I think June sometime, June or July.
No, this, I mean, yeah, it's,
I have a blog of the architect uses spring green font, so.
Yeah, I mean, the front
Oh, set people off.
closed porch still.
We could make a condition that their architect no longer uses this. They're bad, right? I like that. That was great. Yeah, so Kevin, what? I'm sorry.
The submitted plans again, they're showing an enclosed porch, so.
Yeah, there's the one that I have, I think is the most recent.
Essentially,
It
he's gonna
shows
be-
the bigger dormer and it also is still showing enclosed.
I mean, like, as, you know, like, as a matter of technical nature, right, like, suppose you built it with an enclosed porch. And then later you unenclose the porch, your dormer is now non-compliant, but you followed the sequence, I mean, it's a weird situation.
It's very weird.
So,
Very weird.
but it, you know, I do think if the zoning says something, then anyway, but
Yeah.
did you want to get anything else from Kevin before?
Yeah, no, I think Kevin, we can always chat. This is gonna be a little tricky one to write. And I mean, I was much happier with sort of a quid pro quo when I was more convinced that porch should have looked different than it does. But there's so many houses along that block that have a masonry wall and are capped with brick just like that one. So evidence has kind of knocked that argument of mine off. So anyway, so I'm less I think it'll be good having that porch be open. That dormer is really big.
Yeah, it is. There's nothing else am I aware of coming down the pipeline, but every time I say that, one seems to come in the following week. So I will let you know as soon as I'm able to, so we can get it in front of us, so we can start thinking about how we feel about it, whether it's advisory or COA.
And this is clearly one we would have talked to them about had we had the opportunity, but they didn't give us that opportunity, so.
Well, the irony was during part of my plan review, I kind of started off, my original permit correction notice was like 4 pages long. And it said, hey, you're historic, and we went through all this stuff. And then we determined the lot layers and everything else, and he cleaned it up, and we're like, well, that's a great thing that it's not. And we're kind of keep going forward. And then I told you I drove by coming up Meeting House, and I was like, oh no. So the irony, if I came up Iona, I might not have noticed that right away. And obviously, if he like put the tie back on that dormer, it was the fact that it was the old exterior sheathing and then it was the new. So I saw like, oh, you just stretched it out. It was like really obvious.
Right.
I was just there at the right time on the right day.
It's always like, catching, it's like, and when they're not doing good construction management, then it falls to others to be doing it. And that's just not a tenable situation.
Falls to the contractor who's installing it in this case.
Well, but it's like, there's a whole chain of oversight that isn't happening. That
not
a
concerned.
framer should never be running, and I don't think the framer was running, and I think, it was a different thing. But I mean, if, I'm not noticing, if you're not on it, the project in, Narber Park, someone who used to live in the park has been like dropping by and taking pictures of the progress of it. And he sent me a photo, and I noticed in the photo that the front window in that dormer didn't seem to be centered. So I sent the picture to the contractor, to the applicant. I said, and I didn't send the picture, just sent a message that that's centered, the window's centered on the dormer, right? And he said, yeah, it is. So I sent him the photo. I said, well, this is why I was concerned. He goes, oh, you're 100% right. That'll be fixed tomorrow. So there was a framing problem that had a civilian taken a picture, not seen, it would have gone much further. So
I think that's a funny one. That was kind of not an honest mistake by the framer, but like something I don't blame him for. So going up in that front dormer, there's actually like a 3-foot closet on the left side of it that doesn't look like it's part of the dormer, but it looks like it's part of the room to the left of it. So the framer was centering the window based on what was left out of the closet. but the closet was included as part of the dormer, which is why it was shifted over. So that was a
Gotcha.
little-
And no, I figured it was because of what was going on that interior.
yeah,
but,
it was. It's a really small closet.
Yeah, but that would have looked really bizarre, you know, so. Anyway, okay. All right, Kevin, I don't want to hold you any longer, so,
All right.
all right.
All right, everyone. Have a good night. We'll be in touch. If you have any
Let's talk.
questions, just let me know.
All right, that sounds great. Thank you, sir. Oh, all right, moving on. I'd like to kind of sort of bring to sort of conclusion some things that are floating around. And mostly it has to do with getting our budget numbers together for the things we want to do next fiscal year. And then as well as sort of crafting a written response to the council on the missive that they had sent to us. And both these things we've been talking about. What I'd like to be able to do is to set up a couple of small working groups to just get that finished up. Get those different things finished up. As far as the budget, I think we're really close. Because I think Kevin, you've got the numbers pulled together for our Nichols Black, if that comes to fruition. But what I'd really like to do is get a tighter plan and what our way forward on how it's going to be, including when you think we might want to do it, and when we think that an award event should happen, and what should it be? I mean, I think I mentioned it. I want to make it a little more special than a presentation at a council meeting. I think we can like build a little thing around it that would have probably a presentation and a talk, you know, an architectural talk. I was thinking about maybe seeing Kathleen Applin out would want to talk, you know, about some of the research that she's been doing. You know, it's part of that outreach and sort of the benefit of a heart to get folks. So I was going to suggest that that's something you'd be up for, but pull together, and then I'm happy to talk with you about it, or you know, let's get this thing sort of figured out. But I was thinking for all of this stuff, have the stuff drafted so that we can approve it at our next meeting. If you think that's a reasonable timeline, we need to get the money requests into the borough, so that they'll be ready to go with it. And then I think she said what, September, October. That September would be the
It
idea.
was August, September.
Okay, so September, okay. So they can get that stuff put in there.
We kind of talked around the matter of what the budget would look like based on a couple of events and with some modest costs to each thing. That shouldn't be too hard to flesh that out.
And I think
Did we say several in ambitiously several in the spring, several in the fall, maybe targeting 4 events at whatever the cost is of the honoraria.
Sure.
Times 4.
Yeah, and then whatever kind of refreshments. I mean, I think actually right, looking at your breakdown for the Nichols. Like, you know, there's a refreshment cost, and sometimes, you know, there may or may not be an honorary depending on who we bring in.
Yeah.
But I think in terms, you know, you had talked about a walking tour. Megan, when she was here last week or last month, was talking about a bicycle tour, which I think would be a really interesting thing, a chance to partner, you know, with the Norbert Bicycle Group. So anyway, so I'd like to, you know, try to get some what seems reasonable. So, you know, if that's something that you work, you know, again, I can work with Got as well. If that's something
It's simple.
great, okay. So to figure out what the nature of those events. So this is sort of separate from the awards thing. But you know, I think a walking tour and sort of like events outdoors are good. We also talked about.
Anyway, it's just a plug number and it would be modest.
That's fine. I think it's just at this point, it's just so they budget it and that the money's there.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll use it, maybe we won't, you know, but but the main thing is to not have to come to them in an ad hoc way. Right, great, okay, cool.
So the ad hoc committee,
What's that?
you three are the ad hoc committee?
Well, I think the.
Or you're gonna
Yeah,
assemble?
the request without any, approved money
Okay.
in advance.
So I say, sort of work on that on the bill, to like.
Okay.
Simple.
Great, okay, that's it. And then the other thing would be, sort of I was thinking kind of a 3-member working group to try to get, sort of capture the conversations we've had around what council asked us to do and figure out a way of what should our response be? So I'd say going through their list. And then, to offer any sort of overarching things, but it's really tough. I mean, we talk around it and through it, it's been a really difficult thing because we have, some sort of inherent inconsistencies with the way the map is, with the way ordinance is, with the way they defined it. We were not defined as an historic district in ways that I'm used to and that, traditional historic districts are. The ordinance is really kind of soft focus about a lot of things. It talks with great specificity about certain elements, but not about other things that are you typically find within the historic district ordinance. But I think being able to respond to the points would be really good. I was wanting, I think Kevin Rock, pull you in on it, pull Jim. I haven't given Jim Cornwell anything to do, so he's not here, so I'm gonna assign him that. And then I'm happy to participate in it, or Rand if you're interested in participating in that. But it would involve this kind of ad hoc meeting coming together and then drafting something that we could then look at things. So
Well, frankly, I'm concerned that we're not gonna come to terms on it internally.
yeah,
We have different opinions on it, and how are we gonna come up with a position? There's ultimately gonna be a divergence in the issue of expanding the district on chronological lines.
Yeah.
Fundamentally.
well, I mean, we're never going to be completely unified. But we've got, we're all different people who have different points of view. I think what we can do is kind of give it the best shot that we can, and there's always going to be, there's not going to be anything yet. But I think the main thing is that everybody needs to have concerns raised and have concerns heard. And that all goes into whatever final decision gets made. And again, I would keep coming back to the Heritage Action Plan as the sort of guiding document that kind of brought this historic preservation to Narberth. And as we've talked about a lot, it's very much it's sort of a watered down historic preservation ordinance. We're not really regulating very much, except building removal and then the removal of certain elements, certain key elements. So I think we're beginning we're at a disadvantage to start with. You're talking about being able to sort of regulate from a historic preservation standpoint, the borough. But we've kept a lot of buildings that would have been torn down standing. I think that's been the main thing. So, but I mean, and I don't know whether it's in this document or not, but I think that at some point we need to raise the issue of, now that we have a few years under our belts with this stuff, we're not seeing demolition, but we're seeing extremely large additions. And, is there a way of coming to grips with that so that zoning doesn't really deal with it except by setbacks. But in terms of, we've dealt a lot with issues that we're sort of tail wagging and Kevin put a lot of examples together of additions before the ordinance went in. But I think that's the real challenge, because that's really, it's additions that we see that people can't tear down by right. So, is there a way of managing the size of that? And as planning, I mean, you guys have talked about this haven't you, with scale of mean, to some extent, we're kind of the hamstrung somewhat. You know. There's pretty clear guidance in secondary standards about the nature of additions and how big they should and shouldn't be related to the size of the house. You know, when you get the tail wagging dog situation as far as additions goes. You know, the secondary standards call for buildings to retain privacy, and these are very small buildings, so, you know, how big can an addition be? An addition can be bigger on a bigger building, so, but that is that something that can be acted upon where there's a square footage percentage that developers would be limited to, and, you know, and so what should that be?
Yeah, you have to change the law. We'll have to change this law.
Yeah. So it's more than just the preservation ordinance, it would be,
No, I mean, I think it is it's like in the sense of, I think you have to change the preservation.
yeah,
I missed the word change what?
Change the preservation, if you wanted to control the size of the additions, then right, it's not here, as it is now, zoning.
Yeah.
You can build a lot, whatever, so.
no, I mean, and I think it's within our purview to be able to recommend whether or not council would enact it, but, I think it's been within our purview to recommend modifications to the ordinance. You know, we've been using this ordinance for years. We've had some, have seen what's worked really well about it, but we've seen what hasn't, so. So I think the way is stating that in a way that the council will be able to embrace, I think is something that we should really consider. So, okay,
But I want to think about also when they're corner lots, have different rules.
well, yes, you know, yeah, well, see, within traditional preservation ordinance, they do, because this whole first, second, and third lot layer
Right.
is only us, it's only here, I mean, and it's brought over from another system. Preservation ordinances typically only talk about, you know, what's viewable from a public right of way.
Well, that confused me a little bit because I thought that in this example today on Iona, the fact that it was on a corner, did that not change this third lot layer perspective?
No.
It did not, so despite the fact that it faces the street, there was no purview.
Right, because of that particular stipulation, it's a public right of way and lot layer setup. So,
Okay,
you know, so yeah, so I mean, this would have been, I mean,
it seems to be a gap.
well,
It's on a corner property.
I'm not, yeah, and I'm not sure whether or not, you know, that had been entertained or that had been thought about at the time.
Yeah.
Um,
And pretty clearly, I mean, if Kevin read that correctly,
yeah,
and we had no purview over that, it seems to be a gap in the way it's.
yeah, no, I think
Our purview is defined.
I think Kevin read that correctly, and again, I think this particular edition had been on, you know, inside, you know, within the block and not on a corner.
Right.
This looks very much like an edition we've approved lots of times already, you know, it goes straight back, it doesn't, you know, it uses the
Right.
back, in this case, it doesn't use the rear, I mean, the side, because he doesn't have a side to be using, but, you know, so it goes straight back, but it changed, you know, being on a corner like that, it really changes it.
Yeah.
Agree. So. Yep. Okay, anything else you wanna talk about before we close off?
I'll just add one thing, which is we are supposed to get materials for the new website. So,
Okay.
if you have any ideas about that, we know we've discussed and cut the one pager, but they do want that. So like Kevin,
By last month, right?
yeah, they want it like this month, next month. I think it would be a good goal is to have that by September. At least some stuff to throw up there. I mean, in addition to the ordinance, maybe something like the process diagram about where things go, that's relatively easy.
Can I make a suggestion on this, that we do a group think on this by email?
Yeah.
And that we each just circulate some thoughts. I can initiate it and stick on there and send it around within the day. And just add to this in terms of just real basics, outline.
Sure, great. And I think, you know, anything that we think would be useful. I mean, it's, you know, some things that kind of explain who we are, what we do, all
Right.
that. But I think then just sort of useful, sort of guidance.
All right, so I'll do that
Okay.
and get the ball rolling.
Okay, great.
Definitely advertising that kind of informal, that option to informally meet. What do we call that again? Just design.
Yeah, like a guide, like a,
Exactly.
yeah,
Advisory.
yeah, and that's, see, advisory is a specific thing within the ordinance.
Friendly.
We need to just
Yes.
put that,
We
make
encourage,
that
you know,
visible.
We encourage
Yeah,
people to come in early in their planning process.
yeah.
Well, we're doing the work now that we can be doing by email.
Okay.
Sending it
Yeah,
out.
but I mean, that's the kind of stuff, so, okay, great. All right, great. Do I have a motion to?
Motion to.
Ray, I can second.
Okay.
We are adjourned. Thank you, thank you all.
1 second.
And I have that.